All right. So it is Jamie Arleo here with my husband, Richard. Say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
The all the one person that might listen to this.
Yeah, this is going to be very popular. Many listeners.
Okay, well, for whoever is listening, this is going to be about the third season of True Detective. If you haven't been watching any of the True Detectives, first of all, did you come out of a rock?
Did you come out of a rock?
Do you live under a rock?
There's just rock people here now.
Do you live under a rock? Oh my god, this is a disaster already.
Rock people don't watch True Detective. We've established that.
Hey, don't discriminate against Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He'll kick your ass, literally. Did you see that picture? Oh my god.
Yeah, he looks enormous on Hobbs and Shaw.
Is that for Hobbs and Shaw? I thought that was for his new Samoan movie.
I think it's Hobbs and Shaw. I think from the hashtag.
Oh shit. All right. Well, anyway, if you haven't watched the True Detective series, you should go watch the first one. It's phenomenal with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Who doesn't love them?
That was one of the greatest series I've ever watched. Just that season, that first season, it was so good. And I watched it, I think, 3 times.
You did, because you watched it first, and then you told me to watch it,
and I watched it with you.
Me. And I remember it taking a long time to get through. I don't know if it was because we were drinking.
Maybe, but not for me. The first time I did it by myself in a day. Just watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Jesus. Anyway, it's an amazing series. The second season was okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't great. With Vince Vaughn and Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, Taylor Kitsch. Is that his last name? Kitsch?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it was too scattered. It was too all over the place.
Yeah, there's a lot of storylines going on at once. But it was okay. But definitely watch the first season. The first and second and third seasons don't have anything to do with each other, so you can just skip the second season and go right to the third if you want.
I would recommend doing that. It wasn't worth it. There were a few good moments. Vince Vaughn was good, but it just was not anywhere near the first one.
Yeah. The third one, the first episode came out 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we're starting now. We just finished episode 1.
Episode 1, yes. And this first episode, I can just feel this season has the same style, the same vibe as the first one.
Yeah, it was already better than the second season.
And we're only in one episode.
Yeah.
For sure. It's Mahershala Ali is so good.
Yeah, he's awesome.
An unbelievable actor.
Yeah. And it was cool seeing Stephen Dorff, who I haven't seen since the original Blade. That guy, I haven't seen him in anything since then.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't remember Blade. I know you've shown me it, but I don't remember Blade or anybody in it except for Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. I don't know if I showed you the first one. I definitely showed you the one with Ryan Reynolds, though.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica Biel.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Of course. They're both
beautiful humans.
Okay, so if you didn't watch the first season, the third season starts out in the same way, meaning that it starts off with different times, periods of time. So they'll have So we know from the start that Mahershala Ali and Stephen Dorff, Mahershala Ali's character is Wayne Hayes, and Stephen Dorff's character is Roland West, and they're both detectives in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, it's Arkansas. I forget the town name, but Arkansas, yeah.
Yeah, the detectives in Arkansas. So, with these two detectives, they're working on one case, the case of two missing kids. They're a brother and sister. The girl is 10 years old and the boy's 12, I believe. And the boy's name's William and the girl's name's Julie. But it's a missing child case. And they talk about this case over a few decades. So they'll show Wayne as like during when the case happens in 1980, and then they show him in an interrogation room. Well, giving
It's like a
his
deposition
deposition
or
to
something. Yeah.
giving a deposition to other detectives in 1990, so 10 years later, and then you see him as an older man talking about this case. It looks like they're filming a documentary about it, and they're asking him to tell the story.
Is it present day or is it? They said 2015, so I feel it's a couple of years back.
Yeah, which is, I don't know how that holds any relevance. I mean, we're only one episode in, but it's not a true story, so I don't know why they wouldn't make it present day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why 2015? But I'm sure maybe that'll be answered later on.
Yeah, maybe they could show him now in 2018, or he could be dead, or who knows? We don't know.
That's true. That's true.
That's what we're here to find out.
That's what we're here about now. What you sipping on? Tell the people.
What am I sipping on? Nice cold Guinness. That's what I'm sipping on. Yeah. What about you? Got your vino in there?
Yeah, sipping on some vino, some Pinot Grigio.
Mm-hmm. And you might be able to hear it, but Jax has decided to start chomping on his bone. So
I hear a little pop every once in a while.
Yeah.
Bone time.
Yeah, it's bone time. Hashtag bone time.
All right, do you want to start out with the story? We told a little bit, gave them a little setup, but do you want to start from the beginning?
Well, sure. I mean, if for people who are watching along, I mean, obviously we're going to try to go episode by episode, do a little recap and kind of guess as much as we can, share our theories and whatnot. But this episode, as Jamie said, starts with him present day as an old man. They're filming the documentary, and it kind of jumps back and forth to 1990 when he's in a deposition, and they're kind of bringing the case back to life, saying that they convicted the wrong man, who Wayne Hayes seems to already know. We don't know what happened yet. They haven't even gone back to the 80s at this point. But then they go back into the 80s, and you meet Hayes and West back there, and then you see those two kids. They are just riding their bikes, and I even said, like, in 1980, the kids are like, "Oh, we're gonna go ride your bikes," and you're just like, "Okay, be home by this time," and that's it. There's no cell phones tracking them or anything.
No, but that's how it was back then. I mean, that's even, we grew up that way in the early 90s, so
yeah,
that's just how it was. Your parents told you to be home by a certain time. So these kids say that they're going to go ride their bikes, and their dad says be home by 5:30, and as you can assume, they didn't come home, and so the case starts.
Yeah, and they show you some clues, or at least give you some things to think about as they're riding their bikes. You see an Indian man in a go-kart pulling junk. The kids pass by him, and the kids also pass by these teens in a Volkswagen, the purple Volkswagen, who were later identified as like high school teenagers.
Yeah.
I guess they're old. They're clearly older than them, but I guess they're in the same school. So one's 12, and these kids are what, like 17, maybe.
Yeah. I just want to put it out there that this missing kids case starts in 1980. So if you think 1980, it's just after Vietnam War. And what we mean by an Indian man is Native American. And
yes.
Well, I mean, I'm like trying to be thorough, like, so that people know.
Yeah.
And the two young kids are both white kids, and the three teenagers that Rich just mentioned are also white teenagers in a purple bug, right?
Yeah, and they're going to this hill that I guess the
If you're
teens go to drink, and they
yeah,
call it. If
if
we
you
find out later, it's called the Devil's Den, right?
yeah, if you're from the country like me, it's a power line party. If you know anything about that, you go up to the power lines and you in a field and you drink with your buddies.
For me, it was the sod farms. We used to go to the sod farms. Just go out into the fields and drink.
Anyway, yeah.
So
So
everybody
there was
has their own name for it, but yeah, it's just teens finding an open field to get drunk in.
yeah. So we find out a little later that the three kids in the car are Freddie Burns, Brian Peters, and Jason Lampanelli. Lampanella, sorry.
It's Italian name. I got to correct you.
Of course. So, from what I got, when they show that shot of the teenagers in the bug watching the two brother and sister ride their bike, they had like menacing looks on their face, did they not?
Yeah, they did.
And maybe just to throw us off, but it looked weird.
Yeah, I feel like there were a few red herrings as we go through, but obviously, we're trying to crack the case along with them, so we got to follow every lead.
Yeah.
So then you find out that the kids didn't come back, so the father goes out to look for him. When he goes out, you see that Native American man in his go-kart again, and then he obviously calls the cops, and they start the search. They go through a few other people that you saw as the kids were riding bikes, like an older woman who was on her front porch, and just a few other people as they're trying to track and find the trail and find these kids. And I thought it was cool that you find out that Hayes was a tracker in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So when they start like investigating, he kind of goes off and does his own thing, and he finds these trails, and he does.
Yeah, he follows the bike tracks in their sneaker footprints, some animal tracks that he and you see there's one scene where all of the rest of the detectives and search party go on their own way, and he just goes off on another way. Just cool.
Yeah, I kind of jumped forward a little bit on that, but first they start. I guess they go to the next day, and that's when they go to the school, and they talk to the kids, those two teenagers, Peters, Lampanella, and Burns, and they also talk to the teacher, who you kind of find out right away that this is Hayes' wife that he talked about in the 90s room and in the present day documentary. And he says that she was a great teacher, everything. You find out that she has passed, at least in present day. So it goes back to in 80, that's when he's investigating this case, that's when they meet.
Yeah, it jumps back a lot, like back and forth a lot.
Yeah, but it's cohesive. It doesn't
it's easy to follow, even though it goes back and forth so much.
Yeah, there's some shows where they jump around way too much. What was that show we were watching where I was getting upset because it was just jumping back and forth all nimbly bimbly?
Nimbly bimbly. I don't remember.
I don't know, but I was getting angry because it was just like, okay, what time is this? But this one's good. This one is cohesive, like I said.
Was it when I made you watch Memento?
No, that I was able to follow that eventually. I feel like it was a show. I don't know. Whatever. We'll if it comes to me, I'll bring it up.
When during the night that they that the dad reported it. Oh, another thing I want to mention is when so Wayne's and Roland, they both had the idea that maybe the kids ran away because you immediately see that their mom and dad are not in a good marriage. And the wife comes home from being out with her friends drunk, and she like starts blaming the father for losing the kids, and they get into a kind of a scuffle and a yelling match. And Wayne and Roland break it up, and they're just saying, we're just asking questions like maybe because you guys have been separated, that they felt they needed to run away. We just need to try and think of all these options. And so they look around. One of the clues that Wayne found as he was looking in the young boy's room, Will, and he found the stack of Playboys. And then he also went into the closet and found that somebody drilled a peephole in the closet that looks into the sister's room, who's 10
That
years
was
old.
weird. Yeah.
That was very weird. Yeah. And immediately I was like, this young boy's peeping in on his sister. But then the mom mentions that her brother or cousin?
It was a cousin. It was
a cousin, but they called him Uncle Dan, right?
Yeah, Dan O'Brien, they said. That's his name.
Dan O'Brien was staying with them like 6 months prior, and he was staying in Will's room, the young boy. So we immediately pieced together that peephole was put in there by the uncle. So the uncle
Cousin.
was spying on this young girl.
Oh, Uncle Dan, yeah. Yeah, which is
Uncle Dan.
Messed up.
So that's the one little tidbit that we're like, that's fucked up.
Yeah. So right away, like he's a big suspect. You haven't seen him yet, but he's a big suspect.
No, he was just mentioned. Yeah.
So you're thinking about, you have the man on the go-kart. What was his name? Woodward or something? Something Wood.
Something like that.
I didn't get his name. But so he's a suspect. Although I don't know. Well, we could get into that. But he's a suspect. The kids are suspects, and now this Uncle Dan is a pretty big suspect right now.
Yeah. And that night when they were, after they realized that maybe the kids didn't run away, because the parents were adamant they would not do that. So they started asking all the neighbors, as they would in a search case. And all the other people, the neighbors, were saying that they saw the three teenagers, the three boys that we mentioned, that they saw them. So that's why they go to the school the next day and see the teacher and pull those three boys out of class. Well, no, actually, it was just two of them, right? They didn't question the one boy.
I don't know if it was, they questioned Freddie Burns, who was the main kid, but then you don't know if it was Peters or Lampanella. But Freddie Burns was pretty calm and
straightforward, and said he only saw them in their car riding their bikes. Like when they were in their car, he only saw them riding their bikes past. Which
is what we saw.
Yeah.
But then the other kid was very jittery, and he said that he saw them at the Devil's Den where they were partying.
Yeah.
So now, right away, those two kids don't have the same story.
Exactly. So now these kids are a big suspect. And then from there, I don't know why it like goes back and forth to him as an older man in the documentary, where every time they kind of allude to his wife, he gets upset. I mean, as she probably just passed or something like that, and they mention her being an incredible writer, but he just seems to be very upset.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not happy to talk with them.
No. Yeah, he doesn't. He seems like he was maybe forced to do this. We also don't know what this documentary is about.
No. I mean, I'm assuming it's about these killings, which we don't know much about yet. Or actually, we don't know. We don't even know if it's killings yet. We don't know what happened. But
these kids are just missing.
Yeah. So this case obviously was big. The wife's book was about the case, right? I think. Or was it not?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. Do you remember the name of that book when they showed it?
No. I think it was about the case. But either way, the case is very large, and clearly, a big thing. So it's kind of cool how, like, you have all these Netflix documentaries coming about these old these old cases. So it's clearly they're doing something like that, trying to get all the information out of Hayes. But we're learning as he's telling the story, and you're jumping back to the case in the 80s, but now you're going to find out that there's new things coming up in the 90s too. So where we leave off, like as we keep going through the episode, now they were talking to the kids, and then he talks to Amelia, his wife, and clearly they're flirting back and forth. So they'll go into how they become husband and wife. Yeah.
Yeah. They go and investigate. What'd you say? I thought they said it, the Native American man's name was Brett Wood. They keep calling him the trash man because he goes around and collects trash. He's a very poor man, as you can see, and he recycles the trash.
We can call him Trash Man.
I hate that, but okay.
Yeah, so they go to see his house, and it's a complete shit show.
Yeah, it's a very rundown house. You can clearly tell that he's poor. Outside of his house is more or less a junkyard. He's just got a lot of scraps of metal and other things. So Wayne and Roland are walking around his house. Throughout this whole episode, you can tell that Wayne is very detail-oriented. Things that reminded me of Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson in the first episode. Matthew McConaughey was very detail-oriented, like spent a lot of time in one place looking around. And Woody Harrelson was kind of that buddy cop detective on the side.
Loose cannon.
Yeah. So, and that's what Roland reminded me of. He seems like this kind of backwoods country boy, just kind of at the side of Wayne. But Wayne goes
they haven't really delved into him much. Like, you don't really know too much about Wes. The only thing I picked up on about him is that he doesn't seem to like animals.
Yeah, like, no, he doesn't.
When they were sitting and smoking a cigarette or whatever, I guess like a fox came up near them and he was going to shoot it, and then Hayes kind of pushed it back. And then when they're searching with the hunting dogs, he tells the officers to keep those dogs away from him. So clearly he's had some kind of an issue with animals in the past. But that's really the one thing you kind of picked up off of West so far, which seems you don't know how significant that'll be.
And obviously we're just reaching because this is only the first episode of the series, but they give you a lot in just the minor like dialogue and just the shots that they give you. Well, when they're in the, for lack of a better word, trash man's house, Wayne notices a picture of the trash man with his war buddies in Vietnam. And so they just conclude that Roland comes in and says, not everybody was sane when they came back, kind of alluding that he might be out of his mind, giving him more of a reason to be a suspect in the case. They also saw a picture of the trash man's wife and 2 kids. At least that's what it looked like, that he had a wife and 2 kids, because there was a picture of a woman and two children. Yeah. But there was no one home at the time that they just went into his house.
So from there, now they're searching, right?
Yeah, now they're searching, and this is when what we brought up before, the tracker detail, where all the cops in the search party were walking one way, and Wayne decided to go another and follow the bike trail and the footprints.
Yeah, one of the cops asked West what he's doing, and West is kind of like, he does his own thing. He was a tracker and he knows what he's doing. Just let him be, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we all follow Hayes as he's walking, and he follows this trail, and he picks up on these things. And then he's going through the woods. Then he finds the bike in a puddle or lake or whatever, kind of in the mud. And then he keeps going.
You see him go through Devil's Den, and he sees the lookout tower that's in Devil's Den filled with like beer cans and stuff. And he sees all the beer cans around that little site of the Devil's Den, and then that's when he sees the bike in the puddle, and he takes a picture of it and continues walking in the woods.
And then he goes and he sees that voodoo doll that looks like a bride.
Yeah. It's like stuck in a tree trunk. It's a little voodoo doll made out of looks like either straw or like bamboo, and
Yeah,
it's dressed up as a bride.
yeah, which kind of like reminded us of season 1 when they had a similar thing to go off of. Like whenever this killer struck, they found these dolls hanging or whatever. It was like kind
it
of
was like
cult
similar.
related.
It was a big,
Yeah, we won't give anything away from season 1 that for people who might be listening and haven't seen it. But yeah, it was a similar thing there. It's basically just these straw dolls, and these are dressed up. It looks like a bride, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he continues to go straight from there, just like assuming that these are set up in some sort of marker for him. So he follows it and sees another one right outside of the cave. It's the same doll, same bride setup. So he goes a little bit in the cave, and that's when he finds the young boy.
Yeah, and he's laying down, and his hands are in a prayer position. And Hayes feels him, and he has no pulse. He's dead.
Yeah. So they find the little boy, like Rich said, he's in a prayer position, laying down with his hands, like in a prayer position. But then the next scene is that when it cuts to him older when they're doing the documentary, and he says, "I think that's enough for today."
Yeah, he kind of loses it a bit, doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and then you go back to the 90s, right? And that's when you.
Wait.
Are we out of order?
He goes. Yeah, because once he finds the boy, he goes, "I think that's enough now. I think you know what I saw." And then it cuts to him in the 90s when he's in the interrogation. Well, not the interrogation room. He's giving his deposition.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You know what I saw, and we're not continuing unless you tell me what this is about." Because these new detectives in the 90s are questioning about the case all over again, and they're trying to get some more information out, but they're not really telling Hayes why. And that's when the cops say that the little girl, Julie's prints were entered into the system now that they have a print system, because back then in the 80s they didn't have one.
No, well, I think no. It's just they picked her up recently, like in the 90s. Like she's out there, and she was arrested at a Walgreens. So they just said her prints just entered the system. She was arrested at a Walgreens.
Yeah.
So now you're assuming that she's what? It's 10 years later, so she's about 20 now.
Yeah.
And she was just picked up at a
arrested
Walgreens.
for shoplifting at Walgreens. Yeah. Her prints are in the system. And so he goes, "So Julie's alive." And then it cuts back to him working on the case in the 80s. And he's outside the cave, and all of the cops are there, and they're doing a canvas, and, the forensic team's there and doing all that stuff. And he's sitting there talking to Roland, and he mentions a few things about, basically he's disturbed that he found this kid, obviously, who wouldn't be. Then he gets up and tosses a cigarette, and Roland says, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I have to find a girl." And he said, "But it's nighttime. You're not going to see anything." He says, "I don't care." And he just keeps walking in the woods with his flashlight. And that's the end of the episode.
Yep. So there's a lot to take in. They revealed more than I thought,
Yeah, there was quite.
You okay in there? You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm just I'm stretching first of all, so my voice changed.
No, I got you. Sounded like you were choking, but okay.
This episode had me shook.
So what do you think, like, as far as where everything stands, like what do you think happened to Julie? Who's your leading kind of suspect here?
I don't know. My brain goes in weird things because I like this kind of stuff. I like true crime and paranormal stuff. So honestly, I don't think it's going to be any of the suspects we have right now. I don't think it's going to be this Indian man. I think they're going to explain that. I don't think I think maybe these teenage boys have something to do with it, but I don't think they're the cause.
Yeah. Well, one thing we forgot to touch too is that you find out that somebody was arrested, but
Yeah.
in the '90s, like they say, we had the wrong man or whatever. And Hayes
Yeah.
right away is like, yeah, I know we did. So like it's kind of
He knows
obvious
he
that the
is.
wrong man was convicted. So I'm guessing that Trash Man, like they kind of went off of that, and I'm guessing that like he was arrested because it seemed like the mother and father were like already jumping to conclusions and blaming him. Uh, so it could be one of those things. But you're right. I don't think it is any of the people that we know yet. But my leading suspect would be that Uncle Dan, who was peeping into his.
That's kind of where I am. I think
Yeah,
it's something that has to do with this uncle, and I think maybe the girl was kidnapped.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's clear that, and the dolls had a wedding gown on, so clearly this is they killed the brother, and now this guy is taking this girl and gonna make her his wife, which is disgusting. Clearly, it's going in a dark route, obviously, which this show tends to do.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So we put our stamp on it. We think it's the uncle right now, but it's only the first episode, so we'll see if we're right down the line.
Yeah.
But I think these teenage boys have something to do with. They're shisty. They got something.
Oh yeah, there's definitely something going on there. And you saw them too. They showed a clip of them partying with that bike there. So
yeah, they had the boy and the girl's bikes. Like, why?
yeah,
Did they have that? You know?
I couldn't. Now you don't know if they found the bikes there before they got there, or you don't know. But they definitely have something to do with it. Obviously, like if I'm gonna guess something right now, it's like that Uncle Dan guy or somebody that he knows at least like killed the kid and took the girl off and kind of probably kept her captive.
Basically, the first episode just gave us so many clues and left us with so many questions.
Yeah. Well, we decided to go on to the second episode, which so there's as of our recording this now, there's 3 episodes out. And the first two episodes aired on the premiere night together back to back. So most people are probably at least watch those two and have at least the one to catch up on, or people are already caught up. But as we'll keep going through, we'll go through the next two, and then we'll be following along with everybody else.
Yeah, and we'll be more up to date. Like, we're not going to do this 2 weeks after each episode. So
no, but we want to record our thoughts after each episode rather than
to see how it
catching
fits.
up.
And if anybody is listening to this, even if it's, we're just doing this because we think it's fun, and it's going to be fun to hear back on our theories once we're done with the series. But if anybody has any thoughts or theories on it, we would love to hear it. Comment or text us if you know us personally. Let us know.
Hit us up. We'll be sharing this all over, and feel free to reach out, comment. Hope we can get you into the show if you're not watching it, or if you are watching it, let us know your theories, your thoughts, and everything. It's gonna be fun. I've been waiting for this series to come back for a while, and I was a little nervous after how bad season 2 was, but I'm very optimistic now.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It has the same theme as the first one, and Mahershala Ali is like unreal already. Like, I already loved him, but like the first episode, he's just so good.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, I think we wrap up there. So other than the rock people who clearly don't care about True Detective, we hope you'll start enjoying it with us, and you can watch along, and we'll see how this all unfolds.
The rock people and the people that live under rocks, because they're two different, they're two different people.
Yes, they either come from rocks or live under rocks.
They live under rocks. Yes.
Yes.
All you Patrick stars out there.
Yeah, right.
Get on the bandwagon and join us.
Yeah.
All right. See you next podcast session
Bye, guys.
for episode 2. Bye.